I like trains. Now that we get that out of the way, I wanted to do a video talking about a recent thing that happened to me, which was I was diagnosed with autism. I'm gonna leave some time there for a lot of you to be like, yeah, duh.
Yo, Jacksepticeye has recently come out and talked about his diagnosis with autism. For those of you who don't know who Jacksepticeye is, his name is Sean and he quite literally amassed 30 million followers over here on YouTube with his gaming content. While he does gaming content, he's also been very open and honest in the past about his own mental health struggles and journeys that he's been on, trying to get into a better place. And recently, he's come forward and said that he was diagnosed with autism, and it makes a lot of sense for him. Jacksepticeye is a beloved YouTuber for many millions of people, and he's somebody I watched growing up on and off, so I wanted to cover this video today. I personally feel like the way that he done this video was very brilliant because he talked about his experience with getting diagnosed and how it felt for him. And I feel like this is an important video to talk about and to make and react to because autism looks different for everybody. And I hate that there's such a stigma around it that if you have autism, you're probably nonverbal, you're probably socially awkward in public. There's just such a stigma, and there's different spectrums of autism, and everybody handles it differently. There's also this overwhelming trend on TikTok that for some reason is still going, where people will see other people's journeys and experiences with mental health and different diagnoses, and they will take it and run with it and be like, well, since I relate to this person, I must be autistic too. Or, oh, I have random outbursts as well, so maybe I have Tourette's. I've seen so many accounts faking disorders online that it is disgusting, and it puts such a negative stigma on the real people who go through these real disorders. Like I said, though, this disorder is different with everybody who has it. Everybody functions a different way when they do have autism. So I want to go over Jack's story here because it's a very powerful story that he did share. And who knows, some of y'all might relate to it, some of y'all might not relate to it, but it might bring some clarity for what it's like actually with autism. But with that being said, let's dive right into the video.
I was diagnosed with autism. I'm gonna leave some time there for a lot of you to be like, yeah, duh. We knew. Well, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? No one told me. I want to talk about it because I think it's important to open up that conversation, because after having it be diagnosed officially by a doctor, a lot of people came to me and were like, oh, but you're so like social and you're so like your communication is great, and like I couldn't tell. And I think that that's an important distinction to make, because even for me, growing up in like the 90s or the early 2000s, autism had to be that thing that was what is now known as nonverbal autism. It had to be the people who need to stim all the time. It had to be people who need repetitive motions, who can't really communicate well. It was that like really stereotypical version of it that a lot of people still think today is what autism is. And don't get me wrong, that is part of the spectrum of it, and some people are that way, but that's not the entire picture anymore. And for me, for a long time, I was like, oh, I have ADHD. And I thought that that was the reason why a lot of the things I do are the way I do them. But it turns out that ADHD and autism are also like a Venn diagram, or like they're part of the same spectrum, or however you want to visualize it. It's basically, I don't want to say basically, but to put it like in the basic, most banal terms, they're basically the same thing. And I got tested because of my own curiosity. I just like figuring out how my body is, why I am the way I am, how I kind of like fit into different places in the world, and also just to kind of like give myself peace of mind, because when I was a kid, I was the outsider. I was weird. I played video games too much on my own. I like stayed liking the things that other people didn't really like anymore. Like they moved on, like, oh, I don't like video games anymore. And I'm like, oh, I still like love video games. They're cool.
Yo, I can relate to a lot of the things that he's saying because I'm somebody who, growing up, it was just rough. Okay, it was hard to make friends. It was hard to hold conversations. I could not pay attention to what you would say half the time. If we would sit down to have a conversation, I'd probably get the first word in the last sentence. If I catched anything in between, that was a rarity. It's also hard for me to make friends. I'm just not a social person, and I prefer to make friends online because then I have control of our hangout time more so. I can control when I enter the conversation and when I leave the conversation, and I don't have to be stuck with you. I'm somebody who, shocker, shocker, was in all AP classes by the time I was in 10th grade. I was taking 11th and 12th grade classes, but I was still on my 9th grade math because I could not focus on it. When it came down to the open-ended questions, I would quite literally just make it easy for the teacher instead of having to try to read through the rubbish I would write on the paper. I would just put a question mark because I knew my brain couldn't function enough or give me the ability to focus on it enough to write out the equations. That's whenever I ended up started having conversations with my teachers and the guidance counselor, and we talked about possibly being ADD or ADHD, not being able to focus or pay attention or keep myself sitting in class. And I ended up going and getting diagnosed, y'all, and it made me realize, yeah, I'm not dumb, I can't focus because it doesn't keep my attention. And I feel like the shame of it is, I could have probably decided for myself to go and get tested if I would have seen proper people with the proper diagnoses of ADHD or ADD. I could have been like, yeah, I have one or the other and I can go get it figured out. But because of social media, seeing people online, and I'm not blaming social media strictly, but seeing certain people online who fake disorders or overly do disorders makes such a stigma around it that it's hard to trust if you could possibly potentially have it or not. Like when I've seen people talking about having ADHD or ADD, they would really up the antics just for the video purpose, and I'd be like, well, I'm not that bad, so I must not have it. I really salute Jack for making this video because he's not trying to up the antics on having autism. He's giving his true feelings and thoughts on being diagnosed with it and how he acts, how he behaves, how he feels, and it's solely and strictly his truth. He's not hyping it up to be anything that it's not. And it's helping to kind of break the stigma that people create on the internet for certain diseases and disorders, including autism.
I love Sonic the Hedgehog and trains. I actually don't even really like trains or Sonic the Hedgehog. That's how no one knew I was autistic. As I got older, I was like, I have ADHD for sure, definitely. And I went and got tested for that and got medicated for that, and it didn't really work. And I'm trying like different medications right now for it. But at the time I was like, it's not really like clicking. Like I have friends and other people I know who have ADHD and they take medications like it's night and day. That's not always the case for everybody, but just some of the things they were saying about their ADHD, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of like that, but also like a lot more. It just felt, when I was younger, it basically felt like I was the outsider. And then when I got ADHD, I was like, I still kind of feel like the outsider. So I felt like there was something more. So I wanted to go get tested for autism. As I was learning more about it, I started reading stuff that people with ADHD can have autism as well, that they overlap with each other quite a lot. And then I was like, reading down the list, I was like, if you have autism, you likely have ADHD, you likely have depression and anxiety, you likely have intestinal issues, you likely have hypermobility and joint issues, and you likely have asthma. And I was like, I have all of these things. I just have like a soup of like mess going on inside of me. And then as I started to understand, I was like, oh, all of these things are kind of like under the umbrella of neurodivergency. And I just thought it was interesting to get checked for different things and also just learn more about myself. And as I've gotten diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and even for me, getting diagnosed with autism was just such a massive positive. He was talking me through it and was like, some people react poorly to it. Some people don't like to be confronted. Some people don't think they have it and are a bit in denial about it. And I was like, I see this as nothing but a win. I finally have like more answers about myself, why I am the way I am. And not just for other people and where I fit in with things, because like it doesn't change anything about me. I'm still the exact same person I was. But for me, it makes me go easier on myself having these diagnoses about the conditions that I have. Like knowing that I'm autistic, ADHD, ADHD as they call it, makes me go easier on myself, being like, okay, that's why I couldn't really keep up in college, because my brain just kind of like works at a different pace. It doesn't really study things the way other people study it in a neurotypical way. And it's made me like recontextualize my life a lot more and made me just feel better about myself. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from all of this, because I've lived with it for so long now, 34 years of my life, that like it's not going to change anything really. It'll just make me dealing with myself a bit easier, to make me go easier on myself and treat myself a bit more kindly.
Yo, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I just want to give my thoughts and opinions about it. And one of my thoughts and opinions about it is I actually had a conversation with my mother about this on and off for about a year now about could I potentially be autistic? And you're probably thinking, Revoke, why would you think that? But for the same reasons that Jack is listing off here, he just has a bucket list of different diagnoses that all fall under the umbrella of autism. And I just want to be very, very clear, okay? I am not using Jack's video to self-diagnose myself. I am just strictly saying I can feel relation to a lot of the things and struggles that he's talking about. Now, back to speaking for people, not myself, I do feel like, and I have seen other people on the internet who will get a diagnosis and be like, I thought I was just messed up. Like, I thought I was in the wrong and, you know, did all these things backwards, but it's just part of this disorder that I have. And I'm fine, you know? Now I can truly just be nice to myself and know that I'm just not this messed up person, and it's just part of having a certain disorder. It's truly so lovely to see Jack talking about now he can just relax and be kind to himself for the way that his brain works and functions and processes different tidbits of information. It's nice for him to finally understand why and how he understands things. And him being so real and open and honest about his diagnosis with autism could really help a lot of other people understand not only the autism spectrum and disorder itself, but it can help people understand why potentially you could be the way that you are. Maybe somebody in the audience right now struggles with certain things and they're not too kind on themselves, but watching this video, they could potentially relate to what Jack's saying and be like, oh, maybe I should go and get tested. Maybe I should start being more kind to myself and try to not change myself, but understand the way that I work. But Jack coming out and talking about his diagnosis not only is going to help him, but so many other people who might have it or currently are undiagnosed better understand if they could potentially have it or not. But not just that, this is probably such a healing time and experience for him to finally understand himself.
And I think that's really important, because how many of us don't treat ourselves kindly? And a lot of people are probably like, Sean, why are you telling everybody? Well, it's not like you got diagnosed with cancer or something. I get it. Like I said, it doesn't really change much about myself. And it's not like a condition that's like really like life-threatening for me or anything like that. But I think it's a good conversation to have, because when I talked about being diagnosed with ADHD, the amount of people that came out in support of that, but also said that they got tested because of me. Like even my agent said he got tested much later in life, older than I am, because of the stuff I was saying. And I know that some people are going to say the same thing about this, like, oh, I didn't know autism can like present itself that way. Like looking at me, you wouldn't think that I was autistic for a lot of people. So I think it's important to have that conversation and also just normalize it. I'm trying to fucking change this industry. I'm going into next year with an evolutionary mindset that I want to change this fucking industry from people who are obsessed with ambition and legacy. Legacy is just another fucking word for ego and narcissism. Like you're trying to build up a life for yourself that you want people to remember you after you're dead. How self-involved is that? Do good things and hope people do good things back and just spread positivity and joy, you know? But I want to change this sort of mentality around mental health and the way people operate, and this whole idea of like chasing ambition and views and goals and projects and being better than yourself every single day. It's fine to want to be better, but at the behest of absolutely everything else in your life, where your mental health struggles and all you're doing is being productive and making things and just not living your life or being a person or exploring your own mental health and your own mentalities, or dealing with the stuff in your past that fucked you up as a kid that's driving you to be ambitious because your dad probably instilled something in you or your mom wasn't proud enough of you, so you're trying to like, you know what I mean? Try to break down these walls and not like hide away from all of this shit. Have people like sit in this sort of like pseudo masculinity nonsense that we're all kind of hiding in. At least from my perspective, being like, I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of the lack of conversation around a lot of this stuff. And a lot of people, when I announced on Twitter that I had autism, people were like, dude, why would you admit to that? Like, it's some sort of bad thing. It's some sort of thing that suddenly like makes me worse or makes me a different person. It doesn't.
If y'all hear a stream of water in the background, it's coffee brewing, okay? But this is kind of what I touched on in the beginning of the video, is there is such a stigma around being diagnosed, period. Not just with autism, but anything. If you get diagnosed with something and you talk about it, people will look at you differently and look at you like you're diagnosy. And as he said, there's nothing wrong with it. People are acting like he come forward and said that he has some type of terminal illness and he's forever changed and altered and will never be the same Jacksepticeye. That's not the case. And it's mostly people thinking that way because of the stigma and the lack of conversations being had about it. Also, the lack of accountability for influencers who are online faking having certain disorders and making it out to be something that it's not. I don't know if y'all remember Ticks and Roses, but I will for sure make a video about her if you want me to. Probably, you know what, I will make a video about her. Anyway, she ended up deciding to fake that she had Tourette's. And she would get on TikTok and make all these videos of her. One famous one was Pack With Me with Tourette's, where she would pick up an item and just throw it and bust it and shout some obscenity. And a lot of people with the actual Tourette's syndrome was like, this makes us all look terrible. Please never do this again. If you don't have a disease or a disorder, but you want to raise awareness about a disease or a disorder, there's a way to do it. And just because you don't have it doesn't mean that you can't talk about it and bring awareness to it, but there's a way to do it. He's talking about his diagnosis with autism. I don't have autism, but I would love to raise further awareness about it because it does look differently for everybody. So the way that I'm deciding to go about it is to let him share his experience and talk about the stigmas around it. And as he said, there's such a lack of conversation when it comes to having certain diseases or disorders that creators need to start speaking up, especially with platforms that they have. I'm not saying anybody's obligated to do so, but if you have a platform, you have a voice, and just simply speaking about it, even if it's just for 5 minutes, it could help a lot of people under that platform understand themselves better if they relate to it, and then maybe they can get tested. Just like Jack said, he went and did an ADHD or ADD test, I can't remember, one or the other, and his lawyer or close friend to him, I can't remember who it was, he said, but they decided, oh, that resonated really a lot with me. I decided to go and get the test, and it turns out I have it too. There's just, if we would have the conversation more, I feel like it could help people not only better understand themselves, but better understand the disorders that we're talking about.
I would guarantee you that 99% of the people who do YouTube or do content creation or any sort of creative artistic thing all have ADHD. There's a reason that a lot of us are attracted to a job where we make our own hours and we get to communicate with people through a camera rather than having to be in front of them 24/7. You know, there's a definite pattern to this non-conformity aspect of like not wanting to do a regular 9-to-5 job, so you sit in front of a camera playing video games or, you know, and I bet you like half of those people probably have autism. And they just don't realize that that's what autism is, like the way it presents itself. And it's the sort of terminologies and the paperwork and everything about it. The conversation around autism and what it is completely changing. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even said, I mean, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said that I had autism. And now here I am where I'm like, yeah, the signs were all there all along. And the way it presents itself in me is not so much, apparently my communication is good, but people don't realize, like, when I'm conversing with people, I'm going through like a million different things in my brain. I'm overanalyzing the way I am. I'm overanalyzing everything that I say. I'm pushing everything through a filter in my brain. I'm reading everyone's body language all the time to like see where things fit in. So I always say that I'm a really good judge of character because I'm like hyper analyzing people all the time. And not in any sort of judgmental way where I like throw it back at them. But for me, it's like a thing that I can use to kind of like help me get through conversations and social structures a bit easier. And I'm able to weave in and out through that. And I use comedy as my tool to do that. I can like sit down in a group of people, use comedy, and within 5 minutes, I can get a beat on everybody and I can figure them out. And that's my superpower, guys.
Like I said, y'all, I love the way that he did this video, and a lot of pretty much everything that he's saying resonates so heavy with me that I really wanted to react to it because it might resonate with y'all. I'm somebody who, as well, people in my family or even just friends, they would always ask me, what do you think about so-and-so? How do you feel about them? Because growing up, even today, I'm a great judge of character. And reasons pretty much why I feel that way and why other people think that way is what Jack said. He can just analyze somebody and understand by the conversation and just how they are, if this even makes sense, that's how it is, that's how this person is, it is what it is. Also, what he was saying about the content creation, a majority of people who do content creation probably do have ADD or ADHD or even potentially autism, strictly because it's easier for us to communicate and do things on our own time in terms rather than being told we have to do this, that, and the third. If it's not processing properly or not resonating properly with us, it's going to be a lot more difficult. I'm severely ADHD, and I've worked desk jobs, y'all. Desk jobs. That was actual hell. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with working 9 to 5s or even having desk jobs. It's different for everybody, especially if you do have extreme ADHD. It's easier for me to do content creation and be able to make my own hours, work around what works best for me and my own mental health. There's also that neurodivergent aspect that plays a role in content creation as well. Sometimes it's not easy to communicate in person, sometimes things get lost in translation, but if you do content creation, you have the opportunity to, if it takes an hour, process and really think about what you're going to say next. There's probably so many content creators out there right now who have certain, say it's ADHD or ADD or even potentially autism or other things, and they're not diagnosed because they do content creation and they just know that it works for them. They probably don't know why or understand why. They just know it feels the best. And I really applaud Jack so heavily for speaking about this. I know I've never mentioned him on my channel before, but for a reason, y'all. He's a gamer, and that's just, it's not in my niche anymore to do gaming content or to talk about it. Really, if there is a drama, I just might cover it, but he's never in drama. You know what I mean? He's just not somebody who's come across my radar to cover on my channel for something. But I applaud him so heavily. Let me just applaud him. Sorry, I had to do a one-handed clap there, but he's doing great, okay? As Kris Jenner would say, you're doing great, sweetie. He's opening the door for so many other content creators and viewers alike to think about, why does this work best for you? Do you have the ADHD? Do you have the autism? Do you have ADD, potentially? Because more people have it than you think. It's a silent thing that people live with because you're not going to look at somebody and be like, oh, this person has this. It's not something that you can see with the visible eye. But it's something that you feel, and especially if you are that individual who has it, you feel it, you know how you feel, even if other people can't see how you feel, you know it's there. And this might encourage people, especially people in my audience, or his audience, or just people who come across this video randomly, or his video randomly, might watch it and think to themselves, I really resonate with this, and I might get tested to not have that direct answer, but just to better understand myself, and to be easy on myself, and to be kind to myself, and to understand why I am the way that I am.
But also, with me, it's sensory things. Like, I've talked a lot about, like, let's say BB goes for a poop in the kitchen. I can smell when he goes to the bathroom immediately. I can pick up on the smell of shit a mile away. I'm like a shark with blood in the water. And then if he, like, shits on himself or something, I'm like, Evelyn, you got to clean it up, because if I look at it and smell it and touch it, I gag nonstop. Like, I want to be able to help, but I can't do it. I will gag crazy. With certain foods, I'm a bit weird with, like, the textures and the consistencies of them. So for me, it's like a lot of sensory things. But apparently I'm doing masking like all the time. So it's really interesting. I think it's interesting to see, like, a lot of the stuff that people talk about, like, in social situations, and like, no, I'm just introverted and all. You probably are autistic and you just don't realize it. And unfortunately, getting tested for autism is a really tricky thing to do, because I went privately, because the waiting list publicly on the NHS is like 2 years. Fuck that. I can't imagine having to wait that long to kind of like get an answer for things for yourself. So I feel for everybody out there. who has to wait that long. I'm lucky that I was able to go private, and it still took like 2.5 months to get that assessment ready. And the assessment was fine for anyone who's thinking about doing it. The assessment for me was go in and sort of like break down your life in a way that is like, were you always like this as a kid? How did you play with other kids? How did you interact with other people? Were you shy? Were you communicative? How did you imagine your play when you were a kid? And now as an adult, how do you interact with other people? Is it difficult to like keep eye contact? All of those types of questions that you kind of expect will be asked. But there's an assessment form that they go down through that actually is like graded. And for me, one of the scores, there was like a couple of things that I was being scored on, but one of the scores was like, the threshold was like anything over 100 is probably autism spectrum, and I scored like 121. So it wasn't like a crazy high number, but there's definitely like the traits are there. And you're not really supposed to say like moderate, severe, or like high functioning and all of that kind of stuff anymore, because it's kind of degrading, but you can kind of like figure out where I am on the spectrum with a bunch of other like terminologies.
Now, again, I am no expert with autism. I'm not a doctor, and I do not have autism myself, even though this video is making me question if I should go and get tested or not. But with that being said, one thing that I always heard of and knew about with autism that went hand in hand was that sensory issue. Whether the sensory comes in the form of issues with certain textures when it comes to food, or loud music, or bright lights, or dim lights, or just sensory things, period, whether it feels good on your skin or not. The sensory issue is something that I always had more knowledge about when it comes down to the autistic spectrums in itself. Most people who are autistic usually do have some form of sensory issue. And I feel like for Jack's case here, he is very relatable and probably really relatable for a lot of you guys, but everybody's experience with it is different. And the true shame of it, and why, again, I wanted to talk about this video and cover it, is because, as he said, the internet's just a damned place, isn't it? Because when he came out about his autism diagnosis, people were like, oh man, why would you admit to that? Probably because nothing's wrong with having it. That's like admitting that you like tuna casserole over chicken casserole. Nothing's wrong with it. And y'all, before you attack me in the comment section, I know getting an autism diagnosis is far different than picking between tuna or chicken casserole, but hear me out. There's just nothing wrong with it, and if there wasn't such a stigma about being diagnosed with whatever the hell you might potentially be diagnosed with, people would talk about it more, there'd be more conversation, hence more understanding. Now, what Jack was talking about at the beginning of the video, not the beginning, but towards the middle there, about how it's easier to have online interactions and it would be in person, where you have to maintain eye contact, maintain the conversation, feel uncomfortable but continue with it anyway. It is so much easier just being online and talking about it, and whether it's content creation or just simply commenting on somebody's video that they created, it's so much easier for a lot of us to be online. And as a viewer and a content creator, I do enjoy watching other people's content, and I really enjoy watching people's lifestyle videos and certain things of that niche. And I've seen people come out in the past and open up about certain things that either happened to them or their certain diagnoses, and then people in the comment section will be like, I can never look at you the same. And I think it's so a shame that people are too nervous to open up about certain things, such as what Jack's opening up about, or Sean is opening up about, just simply because they don't want to receive the backlash, they don't want to hear the negative connotations, they don't want to hear the stigma around what they're talking about, and it's so frustrating to me. I feel like there's such a lack of understanding with it because, how he said, there's such a lack of conversation. Not all heroes wear capes, and Sean is quite literally a hero in the situation, just opening up about his experience and his journey. And one thing that really blows my mind is the fact that to be diagnosed, it takes incredibly long. It's like playing a video game and waiting to spawn in. You're stuck in a queue until the next round. You just have to simply sit there and spectate and watch and just wait your turn. I couldn't imagine wanting to understand something so badly about myself. Why am I this way? Why do I think this way? Why do I behave this way? Why? And then they tell you, oh, we'll help you figure out why, but you gotta come back in 2 years. And again, back to how he said there's such a lack of understanding and conversation when it comes down to autism in itself. I'm very happy for him and proud of him for speaking out about his personal experience with it, because it can help give us a better understanding to this naked disorder, having autism. You can't see it with your eye. You can't look at somebody. If you would look at somebody, you could see that they have brown eyes, but you can't see that they have autism. And even if you could see, it's so different for everybody who has it. Not everybody, of course, is the same. So having Jack be able to sit down and talk personally about his journey, his experience with it, it can help open the doors for so many other people who probably feel exactly the same way that he feels, thinks the same way that he thinks, has all these experiences that resonate with them that he's been through, to help better understand that, hey, autism doesn't look like this for everybody, but it could look like this.
But the assessment I found actually quite interesting, because it is, some people don't like breaking down their life and like confronting themselves in that way, but I quite enjoy doing that. I'm a very introspective person, and I like kind of figuring out how I tick. So I thought it was an interesting assessment to go through, but it wasn't scary or anything, at least not for me. So I would say if you're thinking about doing it, but you're kind of like apprehensive about it or scared of it, go for it. If anything, the worst thing that can happen is that you end up exactly in the place that you're in right now, and that's probably not that bad. But all the people out there, whenever I'm playing video games, and they're like, man, Sean's so distracted. What is he, stupid? I was pulling my hair out every time he did this. You guys are making fun of an autistic person. Bet you don't feel so good now, huh? You guys were attacking me over stuff that I can't control. How does that feel, huh? Not so good. Some of the reactions to it, though, were really funny. People were like, Jack, we know you did 100 episodes of Happy Wheels. And that was funny. Or I posted like the mustard meme from the Kendrick album of me screaming. And then right after that was like, I got diagnosed with autism. And people were like, duh. I think that's funny. I think it's fine. I'm okay with people joking about it. I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's kind of funny. But I also wanted to talk about it because this is sort of the year where, not only in my personal life, I'm trying to live my authentic self, as it's called, and I'm trying to figure out more about myself and gain the confidence to kind of just be me as who I am. But it's also the year of mental health for me and for Thankmas. And I think that's another reason why I like pushed myself to get these assessments and to kind of like open up that conversation and be sort of that person that kind of takes that initiative. So I have an audience of people that I can use that influence to spread a better message and be more positive about it and break down this whole like, dude, don't admit it. Autistic people are bad, or like people are going to treat you differently, or like it's not cool to do that, or, you know, I'm just so fucking tired of that. I'm tired of this version of the internet that we live in where everyone has to be like crazy productive, crazy ambitious, build a legacy, be as cool as you possibly can be, show no signs of weakness whatsoever. That's all bullshit. Not showing weakness and puffing your chest up and trying to be the coolest person you can be and be as productive as you can and do the coolest things you can be, that's weakness to me. Because that means you're just working to hide from what you're actually scared of, which is being alone with yourself and loving yourself.
Y'all, I have seen it happen so many times. This is kind of totally unrelated to what he just said about people who feel like they have to pump and not take care of themselves when it comes down to content creation. You have to do daily uploads, this, that, and the third. And I used to try to do daily uploads, but now I realize if I just don't feel up to it that day, why burn myself out if I just don't feel up to it? And I can just do it later today if I do feel up to it, or even possibly in the morning when I have all the energy in the world and I want to do it. But I've seen people literally destroy their health and their mental health trying to do content creation because they feel like they have to go above and beyond instead of just simply being themselves. And I understand there's such a high production value nowadays when it comes down to YouTubers. I used to be just YouTube, you and your camera, sitting down at your desk with low quality production and just talking to it about your day, or filming the zoo, or just filming how to do something, the little old DIY projects, how to change your oil, all those videos that first rolled YouTube. Nowadays, you have channels like Mr. Beast who have such high production value, and it kind of makes it hard for other content creators to keep up with it and compete with it, so they feel like they have to go above and beyond and go outside of their emotional means to create this content, just because they feel like if they don't live up to that certain standard for content creation, they won't have a chance. There's also a lot of content creators who will hide and mask their true personality, and as soon as, like, they'll be all smiles on camera, as soon as the camera cuts off, that smile drops because they're not truly happy, because they're masking the person that they are and putting on this front just to keep up this internet persona that people started to follow. And they're scared that if they would be like, you know what, this is who I am, I'm not all smiles all the time, people won't follow it. I'm somebody who I really support the idea that it's really important to just be yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself, and encourage other people to do the exact same thing, to love themselves and take care of themselves, especially take care of your and their mental health. None of us are superheroes. We're just people at the end of the day, and we have limits. We have personal limits. We have personal beliefs, and we can't always go above and beyond, especially if we're just tired that day and we're not feeling up to it. And a lot of people will ignore that and put themselves on the back burner just to keep up with creating this ego online, and it's crazy.
Obviously, I'm throwing out a bunch of accusations, and it's not true for everybody, and it's all unique and it's all different. But you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at. You know where the vibe I'm sitting in is. And I want to tackle that head on next year, and I want to evolve. I want to be an evolved version of myself that is, this kind of contradicts itself, saying like going against the whole like be better every day. But you know what I mean? I want to be more open to who I am as a person and not dance around shit because of what everybody else tells me I should be acting like.
I'm going to try my best to explain this how I want it to come across. So bear with me. As I said, I feel like having autism versus knowing a little bit about autism, it's two different ball games. You can try to have sympathy for somebody. You can try to understand the best that you can, but you're never really going to get it unless you have it yourself. And for him to be a grown-up playing video games, I get the same damn slack. You're an adult, why do you still play video games? It is mentally stimulating, okay? And it really does help me on bad days. It helps me even on good days, just when I need that extra stimulation. And I'm so tired of people in general trying to tell other people that they have to live up to these certain expectations or certain standards or change who they are just to be acceptable, because it's different for everybody, especially if you are someone like Jack and you have autism, or if you are somebody like me and you have ADHD or say ADD or BPD, anything. It's different for everybody, and it's so hard to live up to certain standards that people set for you who have never had it or experienced it themselves. I feel like as well, I've seen this time and time again, even on Jack's channel. I don't want to say it's the subscribers specifically, but viewers who will just come across a video and say, for example, me, when I get nervous or if I don't know how to properly transition, I'll just say with that being said, because it's the easiest thing I can go to and make that transition happen. And I will have so many people saying, why do you say with that being said? Or Missy Ma'am. I say Missy Ma'am a lot, and it's just something I say, and at this point I kind of coined that phrase, but a lot of people like it, but a lot of people be like, yeah, I hate that you say Missy Ma'am, and you have to change this about yourself if you expect to grow your YouTube channel. And I'm not trying to make this about me, but just again, I just do what I want online, and I don't hold myself to a certain standard. I know I'm a slop channel, I don't do the best editing, I'm just here to simply talk, and that's all it is at the end of the day. I just want to talk and form connections online with y'all. And I agree, a lot of people say if you want to grow your channel or make a serious career out of it, you gotta put effort in, girly. And I know I gotta put effort in, but I'm just enjoying it right now. But it can be so disheartening whenever you have people on the internet or people in your real life tell you that you're not living up to these certain standards when you're doing the best that you can do. Anyways, I really, really applaud Jack for making this video. Jacksepticeye. Sorry, I applaud Sean for making this video. Those names confuse me. I feel like if we want a better understanding, all we have to do is ask. Google will tell you something, but if you really want to understand it, you just have to listen to somebody who experiences it every day. And like I said, there's such a stigma around autism and diseases and disorders and everything under that category, because Unfortunately, there's content creators who will act like they have it and they really don't, and they push a certain narrative, or there's people who really do have it and they look at those videos and they're like, this is such a shame that they're doing this because this is not what it's actually like. And it forms a stigma when people say things that are uneducated about, say, autism, and other people who might feel like they have it will come across that and be like, oh, well, I might not have it because this is so off the wall from what it actually is like. I just want to wrap this up by saying, if you think you have it, there's nothing wrong with it. If you think you have ADHD or autism or ADD, I highly encourage everybody to go and get tested. There is nothing wrong with it. It is not going to change how people look at you. Unfortunately, on the internet it might, but that having autism, it does not define you. It's just another characteristic. We need to stop shaming people's personal journeys and start learning from it and asking questions, because it's very harmful to do that. But again, not all heroes wear capes, and today's hero without a cape was quite literally Jacksepticeye for raising more awareness about the subject. But this video was almost an hour long. I feel like I kind of owed it to y'all after I've been away as much as I have. I know I have not been posting daily uploads, but I have decided if I don't feel up to it that day, I'm just not going to do it that day. I'm not going to force myself to keep pushing and pushing if I can just take my time and continue to build my channel that way. And it's been working. I have been getting more subscribers taking time away from the internet and taking care of my mental health and uploading what I want to upload versus pushing myself to do things that I don't feel like necessarily doing in the moment. And it's just been working for me. It's been working for my channel. So I hope that's okay with y'all. I've also just been very busy because it's been holidays and Christmas is coming up, and there's just personal things going on in my life, and it's been a lot lately, so I have just stepped away kind of to take care of my mental health in the situation. But with that being said, if you don't know who Jacksepticeye is, he is a brilliant man, so go check out his channel, hit that subscribe button, and give him some support. Also, let me know in the comment section what y'all thought about this video. Do y'all agree that there is such a negative stigma around not just autism, but so many other disorders, especially with TikTokers and other YouTubers alike who will fake having a disorder and push a negative narrative of it? It's very disgusting to me. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up and I'll catch y'all in the next damn video. Before I do, I just wanted to say, not everybody makes it this far, so if you did make it this far, I really, really appreciate you, so thank you so much.